Hi, Mrs. Cheney here, your art teacher, to talk to you today about cathedrals, specifically those from Romanesque and Gothic times. When I talk about these cathedrals, Romanesque times meaning those that were built between the 11th and 12th century, and Gothic cathedrals that were built between the 12th and 14th century. We're going to compare them, we're going to contrast them, we're going to learn about the features of these cathedrals. So you have a lot of things to write down in your notebook today. I am going to make myself erase so that you can see the full screen and be able to take notes a little bit better, okay? First, I want to talk about these vocabulary words. So on a blank piece of paper or in your notebook, I want you to write down these architectural features. Maybe write each word over to the left and leave some space to the right so you could write or even doodle. You have a Latin cross plan, a nave, the groin or ribbed vaults, pointed arches, flying buttresses, gargoyles, clerestories, massive stained glass windows, and rose windows. Okay? First, I am showing you a picture of a Latin cross floor plan. Okay? This was the floor plan of these cathedrals that were built. So the traditional cathedral floor plan is cross-shaped. The congregation faced the east, just like the sun rises in the east. So they always turned their church in such a way during this time so that the congregation can face the sun rising in the morning. That's kind of neat. The nave down the middle is Latin for ship, and it's where the congregation sits. There may also be seating on areas of the sides. They call those the transepts. And the choir was located behind the chancel, or was seated in the chancel behind everybody. And they faced the nave. So people would come out and they would sing to the congregation, and then they would leave. So the priest would go up to the altar and have the service. Here is a picture of the nave where the congregation sits. I don't know if you've been in a cathedral or not, but they're a beautiful sight to see. This is called a groin or ribbed vault. Okay, going back to your notes real quick. When you wrote that first word, Latin cross plan, okay, I hope you drew a little cross like this maybe over to the side and write floor plan. And the nave, maybe write something as to where the congregation sits. And now you've got your groin and ribbed vaults. I don't know how you could draw that cross section over on the side, or maybe you could write something like an intersection of tunnels. Find your own way of defining this image. Okay, these are pointed arches. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Draw yourself an arch with a point at the top, I guess. This is a cool word I always liked. The immaturity in me comes out, but flying buttresses. They were used to reduce solid wall space. They supported the wall so that thinner ones could be made. Okay, so I'm going to make myself big here again. If there is a cathedral along the wall, okay, and that concrete is very, very thick, and it gets very, 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 very high, that high concrete will get so heavy that the cathedral will start sinking into the ground, okay? And that sinking can be a problem. So they realized they could make those walls thinner on the cathedral if they added what was called a flying buttress. They had a post, and they would have like an arm up holding the side of the building. So these posts with these arms were built along the side of the cathedral, okay, to uphold the cathedral up. I don't know if that makes sense to you. By looking at these pictures, you can kind of see these arms. The one in the top left-hand corner has several arms on the buttress, but here and this one, there's just one, and the image on the right only has one as well. Gargoyles are really cool. It's from the Latin word gullet or gutter. Okay, I talked about how the concrete gets really heavy and that the cathedral would start to sink into the ground. So another thing that architects started doing was making a gutter system. So then when it rained and the rain fell down the roof, it would go along the roof and spit out the gutter's mouth. And to make that gutter interesting, they would make it into a creature or a gargoyle. Gargoyles are found in Reims Cathedral and Notre Dame, many, many cathedrals, but those specifically. They're half human and half animal, and Greeks did this first with the lion's heads. Many fantasy stories have been created about them. to scare people. Things like if you don't go to church, these gargoyles will come and get you, that kind of thing. And yes, there's a children's show called the Gargoyles. Here's some more really cool pictures of gargoyles up close. Okay, and you can see all the people down below underneath. Okay, now supposedly, okay, in Egypt, there's a legend about a gargoyle. And in Egypt, gargoyles were lion heads. In Greece, the lion water spouts were seen on temples like this one, such as the Temple of Zeus. Okay, I want to show you this legend. This legend is really cool. A French legend, I wrote this down so you'd remember it, sprang up in Rome about 630 AD, where a king, okay, I don't know how to say his name, Clotaire or something like that, the second, the bishop of Rouen Cathedral, protected Rouen, France from a monster. It was a typical dragon with bat wings, a long neck, and the ability to breathe fire from its mouth. Saint Romanes, I believe, subdued the dragon with a crucifix and led him back to Rouen where he was burned. His head and neck would not burn as it was tempered by his own fiery breath. The head was then mounted on the walls of the newly built Rouen Cathedral to scare off other dragons. I think that's really cool. Okay, this is called the clerestory. And to draw this would be crazy. So maybe you should just write a series of windows. So windows all in a row on a cathedral was called the clerestory. Okay, this is a rose window or a circular window, kind of like flower petals or rose petals. And I think you know what a stained glass window is. Stained glass windows have images telling the story of Christ and the crucifix and coming off the cross and all that in the glass. Now you got to remember, during this time, people didn't really read very well, and they would go into church to learn Bible stories. Okay, that's how they were educated at church. And because they couldn't read, they could then look at the pictures in the glass windows to understand the story a little bit. So it was a way of illustrating the Bible stories. Okay, this slide, I want you to hit pause. Okay, write down these things and the differences between them. So now we went through the terms or parts of a cathedral. So now you're comparing your Romanesque and your Gothic cathedrals. So a vault, right? Wasn't that like an arch? Romanesque cathedrals have barrel vaults and some groin vaults, and Gothic have groin and ribbed vaults. As far as arches go, Romanesque have round arches on their cathedrals, and Gothic arches are pointed. Okay. As far as support goes, Romanesque cathedrals had really thick walls, and Gothic cathedrals had flying buttresses. Okay. Romanesque clerestories had very tiny windows, and Gothic cathedrals had very large windows. As far as elevation goes, Gothic cathedrals were much taller than Romanesque. Okay. Gothic cathedrals were more ornate and decorated more than a Romanesque. As far as mood goes, Gothic cathedrals are tall and very light-filled, which is kind of the opposite. When you hear the word Gothic, you think of it as being dark and gloomy, and those were the Romanesque ones. And then I have examples written down below, and we're going to go over those now. Okay, so we're going to start with the Romanesque ones. Here's some pictures of Romanesque cathedrals. I'm not going to expect you to memorize them. I just wanted to show them to you. I think they're really cool. Okay. This is Durham Cathedral. It's located in Durham, England. You can go see it today. It's a major tourist attraction. Daily services are held and you can go to church there. It was built around 1093 AD. Okay, this is the inside of Durham Cathedral, and this picture was taken in 2010. Do you recognize this? Look closely. You have a cathedral and this really tall tower right here. Okay, that's called the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It is in Italy and it was built in 1092. This is the baptistry of Pisa, where people would go in to be baptized. And here's the Tower of Pisa. The tower leans about 5.5 degrees to the south. That's not much. That is not much at all. but it looks like it's really leaning, especially when you see it up against the building like this and how it's like sticking out to the side. Okay. So here's some information about the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It was built by the people to show the wealth of the city. It was like to brag. So this little tower was added on to the building. This is actually a bell's tower for Pisa. It was a separate building built. It is 60 meters high, 19 meters in diameter, and weighs 14,000 tons. It has a spiral staircase in the center, and like I said, it leans about 5.5 degrees, which is only 9 centimeters. That's really tiny. The ground at one time was unstable, and that's what caused the lean. You know, the whole sinking thing I was talking about? In 1173, they started building it and completed the first floor. Due to war with Florence, building stopped, and in 1180, the first 3 floors were finished. Many wars took place, and there was a lot of building and then stopping and fighting in a war, and then you build some more and you stop some more. And the people of Pisa showed off to Florence and added a bell to the 3rd floor. They were like, woohoo, look at us. We're going to put a bell here on this really cool tower. But it was only 3 stories tall. When finished, it became 8 stories tall. Pisa sold the tower to Florence. The people became slaves to Florence because they had lost. And they locked their ruler and his family in the top of the tower and let him starve to death because they'd lost the war. Talk about people punishing their ruler. Kind of sad. Okay, so those were Romanesque cathedrals, some of them. Now I'm going to show you some Gothic ones. Remember, these are more ornate, more light-filled, more pointed, decorative, okay? The word Gothic was first made fun of because it did not conform to classic styles of Greece and Rome. Scholars name the style Gothic because it was barbaric and uncivilized, like the Goths who invaded Italy in the 400s. During this time, people settled in towns and built religious cathedrals and universities. Here is Salisbury Cathedral. It has the tallest church spire in the United Kingdom, and it has the largest row of windows, cloister there, and the oldest working clock in the world. The clock has been ticking since 1386 AD. I believe it has to be wound, so they wind it up every day, and it continues to tick. This is Notre Dame. As you know, it is located in France. It took 200 years to build it all the way. They kept adding on and adding on, okay? And here's a side view of it. During the revolution of the 18th century, many of the treasures of the cathedral were destroyed, except for the bells. The church was used to store food for the soldiers during that time. It was restored in 1845, and it caught fire in 1871, restored again in 1991, and then caught fire again in 2019. Unfortunately, I went to go visit several months after it caught fire for this last time, and I was unable to go inside. It was on my bucket list of things I wanted to do, and I was a little upset because I couldn't go inside. Many, many kings of France have been crowned in this cathedral. Okay, this is Chartres Cathedral. It's located in Chartres, France. Parts of it have burned in fires, and many parts have been rebuilt, of course. Statues all throughout tell the stories of the life of Christ. It has 4 rose windows. 9 towers were planned, but only 2 of them were added on. Probably had to do with money. It, of course, has that Latin cross plan as well, and the flying buttresses. You can kind of see them over to the side. It has over 2,000 statues on the outside of the building. It is up close. A little closer anyway. Beautiful. Rouen Cathedral was a huge... Claude Monet loved Rouen Cathedral, and he painted it many, many times during different times of day. Here's Reims Cathedral. Reims Cathedral on fire during World War I. Reims Cathedral up close. Grant Wood did this painting, and it's called the American Gothic, okay? And he painted this in 1930, and it is located in Iowa, and it is a dentist, and it is the artist dentist posing here and his sister. Why do you think they called it the American Gothic? Let me know what you think.